Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Citizens of the world, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of April 3rd in the year 2026. And my next guest is someone who I met at the Evanston Women's Club while I was selling my photos and my books pre-Christmas this past year. And this young woman came up and bought a couple of boxing photos. And the next thing I know, she told me that she is a boxing writer. And it turns out she's a freelance writer and journalist who writes about food, boxing, mixed martial arts, travel, women's issues, and any other topic that makes her say wow or huh or yum. So hello to you, Stephanie.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Stephanie Bradford. And my interest in boxing goes way back. As a kid, my dad in the 50s was in advertising, and he produced the Phillies Saturday night fights on ABC. So I got to go along with them in an Airstream up to Boston. I saw Kid Gavlin and Bobo Olson. Later, I saw Muhammad Ali win the Golden Gloves when he was still Cassius Clay. Never did a lot of boxing, but did some punching on the big bag and the little bag. And Stephanie is out of Lancaster. I'm not sure why she was in Evanston, but she has a lot of articles about sports. And we'll hear about how you can find that. So, Stephanie, good day to you, and tell us a little bit about what it's like writing about boxing.
Writing about boxing is amazing. It is a joy to do because there's absolutely no story that doesn't happen in a boxing gym. You've got love, you've got hate, you've got competition, you have sportsmanship like you've never seen. You have the straightforward physicality of what boxing is. You have people at all ages and stages of their life. And then you have the individual stories that each boxer brings into the gym. So I've covered people who are in college and used to be ballet dancers and are heading for Golden Gloves championships. And I've covered the unfortunately very sad stereotypes of kids who are just trying to find a place to sleep and stay out of the gangs and, you know, make it through the day and everything in the middle. So there's a physicality also to covering boxing. You're going up into gyms that are unair conditioned. Often I find 3 flights up to the gym seems to be the standard. I don't know why, although I did go down 2 flights under a pizza parlor about a month ago to interview a couple kids. So you're running around trying to get quotes from kids. When you're ringside, the sweat's literally flying at you. You learn to cover your drinks and your food if you have food and drink ringside, and keep sanitizer with you.
Well, you're a freelance writer, and I think you're in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what papers you write for, but you have articles in a number of things. I'm a little bit curious how you developed your interest in boxing.
Sure.
Where did that come from? And did you ever do any boxing?
I did. I was in New England, in Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts. I just moved there with my husband, and he walked out on me. And I walked across the street a couple days later, and there was a sign that just said women's boxing. And I was like, I could really hit something. So there's this woman. She was about 4 foot nothing, pixie bobbed hair, and she's instructing the women, wrap your hands, put your gloves on. I knew nothing. I put gloves on, and she just holds up pads and she says 1, 2, and I threw a 1, 2, and she looked right at me. She said, "How long have you been doing this?" And I said, "That is the first punch I've ever thrown." And she's like, "You're good. Keep doing this." And I was like, I'm good at something. I'm good at hitting things. Fast forward, I moved to Northampton, Massachusetts, and I started training in Amherst, Massachusetts, at Amherst Athletic Club under Kirik Jenis, who's very well known in the MMA community. And he just trained me. He's like, show up and I'll train you. And that is one of the other amazing things about boxing is showing up counts. You show up, you put in the work, you show up, you get in the ring, you run every day so that you're in good condition. And after I trained for about a year, I had the opportunity to move to a different gym and possibly get into the Golden Gloves. But Kirik said to me, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you over to West Springfield. Josh is going to put you in the ring with a 19-year-old who's been training since she was 12. She'll knock you out, and then they'll give you a locker." And I looked right at him, and I was like, "Dude, I have a full-time job." So So while I have sparred and I then got into mixed martial arts and jujitsu, and I've trained MMA and all of it, but I never actually got in the ring and competed in a tournament, in a show.
Wow. When, give me some information about women boxers came on the scene.
Sure.
We know that with Title IX, that changed sports a lot. And for a good thing, a lot more women participation. Women's sports are a big deal now. Basketball, women are getting bigger contracts finally. Things have changed a lot. But how long have women been doing boxing that we know of in a big scale? I mean, Muhammad Ali's daughter was a boxer. There are a lot of other athletes who, doing the boxing. What you can tell us about the history of women boxers?
Sure. Women were boxing pro before amateur because if they could fight and you could put a show on. So Ali's daughter is one of them. Locally, Leah Mellinger is somebody who fought pro. Christine Martin fought pro, but they did not have an official amateur record. Christine Martin may have, but I don't think so. Because USA Boxing wouldn't sanction events for women. They were sued by a woman named Gail Grandchamp, and I believe it was in 1996 that they officially won the right to box amateur in USA Boxing sanctioned events. Now, that said, I was researching the Chicago Golden Gloves, which is where the Golden Gloves started, Chicago, 1923. And they said they did a women's bracket, so women's division, in 1993. So I literally just discovered that an hour ago, and now I need to look and see how they were doing that. The USA Boxing sanctioning of the Golden Gloves has sort of ebbed and flowed throughout the years in terms of, because the Golden Gloves is a separate franchised entity, but sanctioned amateur boxing is sanctioned by USA Boxing, which is the organization that is the umbrella organization for sanctioning, but also that's where the Olympic teams come out of. So women, and the other thing is, in my opinion, women are better natural boxers because you throw a punch from your hip. So once you get over sort of I don't know if I should be hitting things, you connect your shoulder and your elbow to your hip and you put your body right behind it. And it's like, oh, I can do this.
I think your reference to the Chicago Golden Gloves history, I also believe it's actually on right now.
Yes.
Yes, actually, the Chicago Golden Gloves happened on March 4th, if I'm recalling correctly. And the winners of the Chicago Golden Gloves will advance to, it looks like, that's its own individual franchise. And so they may be advancing to a regional tournament. That's a Midwest tournament. I was trying to look that up for you. But the nationals, which is where open class boxers. So open class boxers are 18 years old, trying to remember Golden Gloves versus others. I believe you have to have at least 5 fights, but it may be 10. So open class is 18 years old, 10 plus fights. You win at every one of the advancing tournaments. So local, regional, state, or state then regional, depend on how it's organized, and then nationals. And the national Golden Gloves will be in Tulsa, Oklahoma, starting on May 11th.
Well, I found out a little information that I went out to the Golden Gloves in Cicero a couple years back, and the finals are coming up on the 9th, the 10th, and 11th of April at the Cicero Stadium at 1909 South Laramie. So people who still want to go see the Golden Gloves, they could do that.
That's outstanding. Are you going?
I think I will go. I like going, and I like last time I was there, one guy who was sort of an official dude really set me up with an opportunity to take some really nice photos. And
the photography aspect of boxing is so tricky because you can't use a flash, and it is a fast moving. So when I work with photographers I write for the local newspaper, LNP, Lancaster Online, and that's my primary boxing place. And I'll say to a photographer, it's fast moving. These guys and women are in headgear and have their gloves up. If you're good, you keep your gloves up because you don't want to get hit in the face. I was like, but what my editor wants is a clear shot that is also an action shot with somebody's face. Good luck. Good luck with that.
I got a lot of blurry shots.
There's a lot of blur. It's fast moving. It is fast moving. And the other thing is people always want to frame with the ropes, and my editor does not like framed with ropes. She does not like that. And I'm like, it's a beautiful shot. And she's like, what is that? I'm like, it's a rope. It's a boxing ring. Okay, moving on to the next photo.
How about boxing in film? Do you have any favorite movies that have a bunch of boxing?
I do have boxing movies. When I started boxing, in the midst of relationship issues, to say the very least, I went through all of the Rocky movies. I would eat burritos, box, and watch Rocky movies. My sisters will attest to that phase of my life. Then moving in, the one that's set in the Depression with Russell Crowe. I can't remember the name of it. But it's a beautiful movie set in like one of the golden ages of boxing because it's Depression era. And then there's another one that's set in New England with not Matt Damon, but the other guy. And he throws, this one just came out about 12 years ago. There's a combo he throws. He throws a straight, so a jab, he's orthodox. So a jab, a hook, and an uppercut, all on the left, and that you cannot defend against that. One of those punches is going to come through. And when he threw that in the movie, which was based on a true story, and the guy used to throw that combo, I literally stood up in the movie theater and cheered. I was like, you can't defend against that. That was the last time I went out on a date with that particular person.
It strikes me that, boxing in movies and writing, as you said, lends itself to these narratives. Mm-hmm. The individual overcoming, personal situations to succeed. You sort of hinted at it in your introduction. That narrative is still part of the sport.
Absolutely, it is, because we have not overcome all the things that would put somebody in a gym looking for something to do. One of the people I interviewed, I'm trying to think how long ago it was. There's a Palestinian boxing coach who won basically a scholarship to come train as a coach in the United States. And one of our local coaches, who is a national coach, so you get tested and ranked and become coaches at various levels, took him in for a week. And I interviewed this guy. And when I went into the gym, he wanted to, get in and hit pads. So it was the Palestinian coach and the Lancastrian coach. The guy went to wrap his hands, and Barry Stumpf looks at him and he goes, get rid of those wraps. Those are terrible wraps. He wraps this guy's hands like he's wrapped 1,000 hands. And the guy gets into the ring and hits pads like every guy I've ever seen in that gym get in the ring and hit pads. And his dream was to put together an Olympic team. He couldn't even take his team to the international competitions at the time. And of course, it has not improved. But that's all he wanted to do was to have a Palestinian boxing team in the Olympics. Locally, we have a very diverse small city of Lancaster in a very rural area. And as long as you have kids who struggle at school or don't do well at team sports, although that said, a lot of kids are really good at team sports, and then they come into the boxing gym and they're like, ooh, and also I love this. It's kind of like you throw that first punch and you either love it and it's going to do something great for you, or you're like, yeah, this is too hard. It's not for me.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you as well. I think go back 50 years. I think for many people, boxing, there was obviously Muhammad Ali era, and then George Foreman, and then through to Mike Tyson. And these are obviously men's boxing. It was I'm more familiar with. But I think but these were also nationally recognized names. And I don't think men's boxing or women's boxing has that same level of recognition across the country as it used to. And I was wondering what as a writer, as a journalist, how would you sort of characterize that change over the last 30, 40 years?
Well, I'd say two things have happened. One is other sports have taken over, and there was a decline in boxing due to financial scandals. And it kind of got a reputation as being, less of sport and more of a drama situation, to say the very least. So that happened. Obviously, the rise of MMA, a lot of people like to say, well, MMA is better than boxing. It's this, it's that, it's the other thing. And I'm like, everybody knows that in MMA, you've got to have a ground game and a stand-up game. And if you've only got one and somebody hits you in the sweet spot, which is right here, there, zeroes out your nerve endings and you fall. And so you've got to have that game. So the training in boxing and the conditioning you need in boxing is unbelievable. And I'd also bring up Clarissa Shields. Women are allowed to box in the Olympics. Clarissa Shields, who came from a rough background, gets to the Olympics and wins Olympic gold and changes. The year after that, you couldn't see a deodorant commercial or a Nike running shoe commercial. I don't know if Nike was her sponsor or not, but running shoes, deodorant, all of these things suddenly have women boxing, and this is how they're demonstrating their incredible product. And I was like, Clarissa Shields did that in this country. And so I also think there's both a nostalgia factor, but there's always going to be folks who love boxing, love the sport, love the drama of it, love there's a clearer path to boxing than there is MMA. Watching MMA can be a lot more confusing to the eye. And so I think it's holding its own.
So MMA is mixed martial arts,
yes,
for people who don't know. I got a couple of things I just wrote down here. My first movie I remember with boxing was, I think, Jack Palance in Requiem for a Heavyweight on TV in the 50s. I don't know if you guys know that. You're both younger than me.
I'm writing it down.
And I'm also remember that there is a Jewish cemetery at Irving Park and Clark Street in Chicago where Jack Johnson is buried.
Oh, he's buried there.
A famous guy who got abused by the system, but he's buried in the cemetery where I think his wife or girlfriend was also buried. I've been to Cuba a few times, and I was there during the Pan American Games in '91. And one of the things that we did was go to the boxing matches. And it was after Telefeo Stevenson was the champ. But I'm wondering if you have any insight, or if you've ever been to Cuba or seen Cuban boxers, participating.
I have not been to Cuba. I would love to go to Cuba for the boxing and the music and every other reason. There are links between boxing and music, particularly jazz, like Frank Sinatra. His father boxed under an Irish name. We all know that Miles Davis boxed. And Lewis Russell hung out with Joe, what is his name? It'll come to me. In the 20s, they were in New York palling around together. It's the famous heavyweight. His name, of course, is escaping me. I should have jotted that note down. So
all right, we all do it.
There are these links between music and boxing, and definitely on the Chicago scene. You've got all of those links because you have the golden age of jazz and, the beginning of the golden age of boxing in the late 20s. So I completely went off topic from what your question was.
But I think, Mike was asking about Cuba, but I was wondering boxing is obviously global, and remains its popularity is, is there any countries that are particularly strong? Any countries that you'd like to go and write about boxing there?
I would love to. First of all, I'd love to go to England or Ireland because it's old school 1700s thinking of boxing, getting in the ring and competing man to man. So I'd love to do that. Cuba, to get back to that question, Cuba boxing is so ingrained that when Cuban boxers come over here, they often have records that are not official records because they've been boxing in any fight they can take. And I saw one of our local pros go down to a Cuban boxer, and I said, what was this guy's record? He looked like he'd been boxing for 2 lifetimes, and he's only in his 20s. And the coach was like, he's got over 100 fights. He stepped into this ring with over 100 fights. I don't have the official record because they're not official. They weren't sanctioned fights. Let me think, is there a particular country? Mexico has a very specific style of boxing. It's a very squared off, strong look to the boxing. And of course, the one of the number one boxers, if not number one in his class, is a Ukrainian man. And he won Boxer of the Year and Fight of the Year last year from Boxing Writers Association of America.
Let me ask you about women in writing about boxing. Are there other women doing that? And then how about the growth of women sports reporters and analysts and commentators? I mean, every TV station I watch has a woman doing sports some of the time. The White Sox have a woman that is there full time. And then we all know that there is, what's her name? Christine Brennan, who's been around a long time doing sports reporting. Talk about women writing about sports and commentating on sports.
Sure. I'm lucky in that my editor at the newspaper is a woman, and we're about the same age. And she's a fantastic editor and supports everything. Women writing about boxing, I was at the last year's Boxing Writers Association of America annual dinner and award ceremony. And most of the women in the room were, the plus one, even if they trained, although there's a woman on the World Boxing Council, but not a lot of female writers in the room. And the other thing is not a lot of people who focus on the amateurs. And you can't get to the pros without the amateurs. But the other writers and even managers and lawyers, I'd say, this is what I do. I do this local boxing amateur scene. That's my beat. And they were like, somebody will let you cover the amateurs? How did that happen? I'm like, 10 years of writing about boxing. That's how it happened. I think women fought their way into writing and reporting in the 60s and the 70s, and then are now visible, much more visible than they were, because they trained up in it and they saw that they could do it. It wasn't something you weren't allowed to do anymore. And also, as women came out of the sports themselves, if they went into broadcast or writing or podcasting, then they had the background in sport because they could.
We got a couple minutes left. We've talked a lot about obviously boxing, and you also write articles about food and travel and things that make you say yum and wow. It's just could you give us another highlight of something you've written recently that we can encourage people to go take a look at?
I'm all boxing right now because it's the love season in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. I'm literally at the fights almost every weekend and then turning that article around. And we had 37 boxers register this year, and we're now down to the regionals, and we're down to about a dozen, I think, that are going to be the regionals. So I got to say, recently it's all about the boxing. But if somebody wants me to write about something else, please hit me up because I'd love to. I like the human part of writing. I started out as a news reporter, municipal beats. I can do that. I can invert a pyramid and turn it around in 2 hours, no problem. But, travel, food, boxing, sports, the things that bring people together, those are the stories I like to write.
Well, Stephanie Bradford, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm so glad you stopped at my little table. You got some of my photographs, and then you reminded me that the Golden Gloves were coming up, and we ought to get together and do some talking. Yes. As we close out, I want to bring up one more thing. At the beginning of the show today, I talked about the Rising Up Angry alumni site that is on YouTube now, and the risingupangry.org. These are an organization I was with way back. But Euan reminded me that a film I helped make with Peter Kuttner called Trick Bag starts out with the days when we would be going to Chicago Park District boxing events trying to recruit people for the revolution. And there's a nice boxing scene at the beginning of that movie, Trick Bag.